My mom will be reading Isaiah 34 to 40 for us. Let me just get the screen up for people that don't have physical scriptures so they can follow along here. And we'll get going. All right, so let me just fix this here. Fix the compare thing. All right, come on. Let's see. All right, go ahead, Mom.
Okay, Isaiah chapter 34. Come near, you nations, and listen. Pay attention, you peoples. Let the earth hear and all that is in it, the world and all that comes out of it. Yahuwah is angry with all nations. His wrath is upon all their armies. He will totally destroy them. He will give them over to slaughter. Their slain will be thrown out. Their dead bodies will send up a stench. The mountains will be soaked with their blood. All the stars of the heavens will be dissolved, and the sky rolled up like a scroll. All the starry host will fall, like withered leaves from the vine, like shriveled figs from the fig tree. My sword has drunk its fill in the heavens. See, it descends in judgment on Edom, the people I have totally destroyed. The sword of Yahuwah is bathed in blood. It is covered. I can't see that word. My vision is not that great. It is covered with fat. I think fat. It is covered with fat, the blood of lambs and goats, fat from the kidneys of rams. For Yahuwah has a sacrifice in Basra and a great daughter in Edom. And the wild oxen will fall with them, the bull calves and the great bulls. Their land will be drenched with blood, and the dust will be soaked with fat. For Yahuwah has a day of vengeance, a year of retribution to uphold Zion's cause. Edom's streams will be turned into pitch, her dust into burning sulfur. Her land will become blazing pitch. It will not be quenched night and day. Its smoke will rise forever. From generation to generation, it will be desolate, and no one will ever pass through it again. The desert owl and screech owl will possess it. The great owl and the raven will nest there. Yahuwah will stretch out over Edom the measuring line of chaos and the plumb line of desolation. Her nobles will have nothing there to be called a kingdom. All her princes will vanish away. Thorns will overrun her citadels, nettles and brambles her strongholds. She will become a haunt for jackals, a home for owls. Desert creatures will meet with hyenas, and wild goats will bleat to each other. There the night creatures will also repose and find for themselves places of rest. The owl will nest there and lay eggs. She will hatch them and care for her young under the shadow of her wings. There also the falcons will gather, each with its mare. Look in the scroll of Yahuwah and read. None of these will be missing. Not one will lack her mate. For it is his mouth that has given the order, and his spirit will gather them together. He allots their portions. His hand distributes them by measure. They will possess it forever and dwell there from generation to generation. Chapter 35, entitled Joy of the Redeemed. The desert and the parched land will be glad. The wilderness will rejoice and blossom. Like the crocus, it will burst into bloom. It will rejoice greatly and shout for joy. The splendor of Lebanon will be given to it, the splendor of Carmel and Sharon. They will see the esteem of Yahuwah, the splendor of our Elohim. Strengthen the feeble hands, steady the knees that give way. Say to those with fearful hearts, be strong, do not fear, your Elohim will come. He will come with vengeance, with divine retribution. He will come to save you. There will the eyes of the blind be opened, and the ears of the deaf unstopped. Then will the lame leap like a deer, and the tongue of the dumb shout for joy. Water will gush forth in the wilderness and streams in the desert. The burning sand will become a pool, the thirsty ground bubbling springs. In the haunts where jackals once lay, grass and reeds and papyrus will grow. And a highway will be there. It will be called the highway of set apartness. The unclean will not journey on it. It will be for those who walk in that way. Wicked fools will not go about on it. No lion will be there, nor will any ferocious beasts get up on it. They will not be found there. But only the redeemed will walk there, and the ransomed of Yahuwah will return. They will enter Zion with singing, everlasting joy will crown their heads. Gladness and joy will overtake them, and sorrow and sighing will flee away. Okay, chapter 36. In the 14th year of King Hezekiah's reign, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, attacked all the fortified cities of Yehudah and captured them. Then the king of Assyria sent his field commander with a large army from Lachish to King Hezekiah at Jerusalem. When the commander stopped at the aqueduct of the upper pool on the road to the washerman's field, Eliakim, son of Hilkiah, the palace administrator, Shebna, the secretary, and Yoah, son of Asaph, the recorder, went out to him. The field commander said to them, "Tell Hezekiah, this is what the great king, the king of Assyria, says. On what are you basing this confidence of yours? You say you have strategy and military strength, but you speak only empty words. On whom are you depending, that you rebel against me? Look now, you are depending on Egypt, that splintered need of a shaft which pierces a man's hand and wounds him if he leans on it. Such is Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to all who depend on him. And if you say to me, why are you depending on Yahuwah our Elohim? Isn't he the one whose high places and altars Hezekiah renowned, saying to Yehudah and Jerusalem, you must worship before this altar? Come now, make a bargain with my master, the king of Assyria. I will give you 2,000 horses if you can put riders on them. How then can you repulse one officer of the least of my master's officials, even though you are depending on Egypt for chariots and horsemen? Furthermore, have I come to attack and destroy this land without Yahuwah? The Elohim himself said to me to march against this country and destroy it. Then Eliakim and Yoah, said to the field commander, "Please speak to your servants in Aramaic, since we understand it. Don't speak it as in Hebrew in the hearing of the people on the wall." But the commander replied, "What it only to your master and you that master sent me to say these things, and not to the men sitting on the wall, who like you will have to eat their own filth and drink their own urine." Then the commander stood and called out in Hebrew, "Hear the words of the great king, the king of Assyria. This is what the king says. Do not let Hezekiah deceive you. He cannot deliver you. Do not let Hezekiah persuade you to trust in Yahuwah when he says, 'Yahuwah will surely deliver us. This city will not be given into the hand of the king of Assyria.' Do not listen to Hezekiah. This is what the king of Assyria says. Make peace with me and come out to me. Then every one of you will eat from his own wine and fig tree and drink water from his own cistern, until I come and take you in the land like your own, a land of grain and new wine, a land of bread and vineyards. Do not let Hezekiah mislead you when he says, 'Yahuwah will deliver us.' Has the Elohim of any nation ever delivered his land from the hand of the king of Assyria? Where are the mighty ones of Hamath and Arpad? Where are the mighty ones of Sephtarim? Have they rescued Samaria from my hand? Who of all the mighty ones of these countries has been able to save his land from me? How then can Yahuwah deliver Jerusalem from my hand?" But the people remained silent and said nothing in reply, because the king had commanded, "Do not answer him." Then Eliakim, son of Hilkiah, the palace administrator, Shebna the secretary, and Joah, son of Asaph, the recorder, went to Hezekiah with their clothes torn and told them what the field commander had said. Chapter 37. When King Hezekiah heard this, he tore his clothes and put on sackcloth and went into the temple of Yahuwah. He sent Eliakim, the palace administrator, Shebna the secretary, and the leading priests, all wearing sackcloth, to the prophet Isaiah, son of Amos. They told him, "This is what Hezekiah says. This day is a day of distress and rebuke and disguise on when children come to the point of birth, and there is no strength to deliver them. It may be that Yahuwah your Elohim will hear the words of the field commander, whom his master, the king of Assyria, has sent to ridicule the living Elohim, and that he will rebuke him for the words Yahuwah your Elohim has heard. Therefore, pray for the remnant that still survives." When King Hezekiah's officials came to Isaiah, Isaiah said to them, "Tell your master, this is what Yahuwah says. Do not be afraid of what you have heard. Those words with which the underlings of the king of Assyria have blasphemed me. Listen, I am going to put a spirit in him, so that when he hears a certain report, he will return to his own country, and there I will have him cut down with the sword." When the field commander heard that the king of Assyria had left Lachish, he withdrew and found the king fighting against Libnah. Now, Sennacherib received a report that Tariake, the Cushite king of Egypt, was marching out to fight against him. When he heard it, he sent messengers to Hezekiah with this word: "Say to Hezekiah, king of Yehuda, Do not let the mighty one you depend on deceive you when he says, Jerusalem will not be handed over to the king of Assyria. Surely you have heard when the kings of Assyria have done to all the countries, destroying them completely, and you will be delivered. Did the mighty ones of the nations that were destroyed by my forefathers deliver them? The mighty ones of Guzan, Param, Rezeph, and the people of Eden, who were in Telassar? Where is the king of Hamath, the king of Arpad, the king of the city of Sepharvaim, or of Elah or Irwa? Hezekiah reviewed the letter from the messengers and read it. Then he went up to the temple of Yahuwah and spread it out before Yahuwah, and Hezekiah prayed to Yahuwah, O Master Almighty, Elohim of Yashrael, enthroned between the cherubim, you alone are Elohim over all the kingdoms of the earth. You have made heaven and earth. Give ear, O Yahuwah, and hear. Open your eyes, O Yahuwah, and see. Listen to all the words Sennacherib has said to insult the living Elohim. It is true, O Yahuwah, that the Assyrian kings have laid waste all these peoples and their lands. They have thrown their mighty ones into the fire and destroyed them, for they were not mighty ones, but only wood and stone, fashioned by human hands. Now, O Yahuwah our Elohim, deliver us from his hand, so that all kingdoms on earth may know that you alone are Elohim. You are alone are Yahuwah our Elohim. Then Isaiah, son of Amos, sent a message to Hezekiah. This is what Yahuwah, the Elohim of Israel, says. Because you have prayed to me concerning the Sennacherib, king of Assyria, this is the word Yahuwah has spoken against him. The virgin daughter of Zion despises and mocks you. The daughter of Jerusalem kisses her head as you flee. Who is it that you have insulted and blasphemed against? Whom have you raised your voice and lifted your eyes in pride against the set-apart one of Yashrael? By your messengers you have heaped insults on Yahuwah, and you have said, with my mighty chariots I have ascended the heights of the mountains, the utmost heights of Lebanon. I have cut down its tallest cedars, the choicest of its, I can't read that. I have reached its united heights, the finest of its forests. I have dug wells in foreign lands and drunk the water there. With the soles of my feet, I have dried up all the streams of Egypt. Have you not heard? Long ago I reclaimed it. In days of old I planted it. Now I have brought it to pass that you have turned fortified cities into piles of stone. Their people drained of power and dismayed and put to shame. They are like plants in the field, like tender green shoots, like grass supporting on the housetops, scorched before it grows up. But I know where you stay and when you come and go, and how you rage against me. Because you rage against me and because your insolence has reached my ears, I will put my hook in your nose and my bit in your mouth, and it will make you return in the way you came. This will be the sign for you, O Hezekiah. This year you will eat what grows by itself, and the second year what springs from that. But in the third year You sow and reap, plant vineyards and eat their fruit. Once more, a remnant of the house of Yehudah will take root below, and her fruit survive. For out of Jerusalem will come a remnant, and out of Mount Zion a hand of survivors. The zeal of Yahuwah Almighty will accomplish this. Therefore, this is what Yahuwah says concerning the king of Assyria. He will not enter this city or shoot an arrow here. He will not climb before it and shield or build a siege camp against it. By the way that he came, he will return. He will not enter this city, declares Yahuwah. I will defend this city and save it for my sake and for the sake of David, my servant. Then the angel of Yahuwah went out and put to death 185,000 men in the Assyrian camp. When the people got up the next morning, these were all the dead bodies. There were all the dead bodies. So Sennacherib, king of Assyria, broke camp and withdrew. He returned to Nineveh and stayed there. One day, while he was worshiping in the temple of his mighty one, Nisroch, his sons Adramelech and Sharezer cut him down with a sword, and they escaped to the land of Ararat and Esarhaddon. His son succeeded him as king. In those days, chapter 38, in those days, Hezekiah became ill and was at the point of death. The prophet Isaiah, son of Amos, went to him and said, "This is what Yahuwah says. Put your house in order, because you are going to die. You will not recover." Hezekiah turned his face to the wall and prayed to Yahuwah. "Remember, O Yahuwah, how I have walked before you faithfully and with wholehearted devotion, and have done what is good in your eyes." And Hezekiah wept bitterly. Then the word of Yahuwah came to Isaiah. "Go and tell Hezekiah, this is what Yahuwah, your Elohim, your father David says. I have heard your prayer and seen your tears. I will add 15 years to your life, and I will deliver you and this city from the hand of the king of Assyria. I will defend this city. This is Yahuwah's sign to you that Yahuwah will do what he has promised. I will make the shadow cast by the sun go back the 10 steps it has gone down on the stairway of Ahaz." So the sunlight went back the 10 steps it had gone down. A writing of Hezekiah, king of Yehudah, after his illness and recovery. I said, "In the prime of my life must I go through the gates of death and be robbed of the rest of my years?" I said, "I will not again see Yahuwah the Elohim in the land of the living. No longer will I look on mankind or be with those who now dwell in this world. Like a shepherd's tent, my house has been pulled down and taken from me. Like a weaver, I have rolled up my life, and he has cut me off from the living. Day and night you made an end of me. I waited patiently till dawn, but like a lion, he broke all my bones. Day and night you made an end of me. I cried like a swift or thrush. I moaned like a mourning dove. My eyes grew weak, so I looked to the heavens. I am troubled, O Yahuwah. Come to my aid. But what can I say? He has spoken to me, and he himself has done this. I will walk humbly all my years because of this anguish of my soul. Yahuwah, by such things men live, and my spirit finds life in them too. You restored me to health and let me live. Surely it was for my benefit that I suffered such anguish. In your love you kept me from the pit of destruction. You have put all my sins behind your back. For the grave, or Sheol, actually, cannot praise you. Death cannot sing your praise. Those who go down to the pit cannot hope for your faithfulness. The living they praise you, as I am doing today. Fathers tell their children about your faithfulness. Yahuwah will save me, and we will sing with stringed instruments all the days of our lives in the temple of Yahuwah. Then Isaiah said, prepare a poultice of figs and apply it to the boil, and he will recover. Hezekiah had asked, what will be the sign that I will go up to the temple of Yahuwah? Chapter 39. At that time, Merodach Baladan, son of Baladan, king of Babylon, sent Hezekiah letters and a gift, because he had heard of his illness and recovery. Hezekiah received the envoys gladly and shewed them what was in the storehouses, the silver, the gold, the spices, the fine oil, his entire armory, and everything found among his treasures. Armory, that was. Okay. There was nothing in his palace or in all his kingdom that Hezekiah did not show them. Then Isaiah the prophet went to King Hezekiah and asked, what did those men say, and where did they come from? From a distant land, Hezekiah replied. They came to me from Babylon. The prophet asked, what did they see in your palace? They saw everything in my palace, Hezekiah said. There is nothing among my treasures that I did not show them. Then Isaiah said to Hezekiah, hear the word of Yahuwah Almighty. The time will surely come when everything in your palace and all that your fathers have stored up until this day will be carried off to Babylon. Nothing will be left, says Yahuwah. And some of your descendants, your own flesh and blood, who will be born to you, will be taken away, and they will become eunuchs in the palace of the king of Babylon. The word of Yahuwah you have spoken is good, Hezekiah replied, for he thought, there will be peace and security in my lifetime. Chapter 40. And this is entitled Comfort for Yahuwah's People. Comfort, comfort my people, saith your Elohim. Speak tenderly to Jerusalem and proclaim to her that her heart's service has been completed, that her sin has been paid for, that she has received from Yahuwah's hand double for all her sins. A voice of one calling in the desert, prepare the way for Yahuwah, make straight in the wilderness a highway for our Elohim. Every valley shall be exalted, every mountain and hill made low. The rough ground shall be leveled, the rugged places made plain, and the splendor of Yahuwah will be revealed, and all mankind together will see it. For the mouth of Yahuwah hath spoken. A voice says, cry out. And I said, what shall I cry? All men are like grass, and all their splendor is like the flowers of the field. The grass withers and the flowers fail, because The breath of Yahuwah blows on them. Surely the people are grass. The grass withers until the flowers fail. But the word of our Elohim stands forever. You who bring good tidings to Zion, go up on a high mountain. You who bring good tidings to Jerusalem, lift up your voice with a shout. Lift it up. Do not be afraid. Say unto the cities of Yehuda, behold your Elohim. See, the sovereign Elohim comes with power, and his arm rules for him. See, his reward is with him, and his recompense accompanies him. He tends his flock like a shepherd. He gathers the lambs in his arms and carries them close to his heart. He gently leads those that have young. Who has measured the waters in the hollow of his hand, or with the breadth of his hand marked off the heavens? Who has held the dust of the earth in a basket, or weighed the mountains on the scales, and the hills in a balance? Who has understood the spirit of Yahuwah, or instructed him as his counselor? One second. Whom did Yahuwah consult to enlighten him? And who taught him the right way? Who was it that taught him knowledge, or showed him the path of understanding? Surely the nations are like a drop in a bucket. They are regarded as dust on the scales. He weighs the islands as though they were fire dust. Lebanon is not sufficient for altar fires, nor its animals enough for burnt offerings. Before him, all the nations are as nothing. They are regarded by him as worthless and less than nothing. To whom then will you compare Elohim? What image will you compare him to? As for an idol, a craftsman cast, and a goldsmith overlays it with gold, and fashions silver chains for it, a man too poor to present such an offering selects wood that will not rot. He looks for a skilled craftsman to set up an idol that will not apply. Do you not know? Have you not heard? Has it not been told you from the beginning? Have you not understood since the earth was founded? He sits enthroned above the circle of the earth, and its people are like grasshoppers. He stretches out the heavens like a canopy and spreads them out like a tent to live in. He brings princes to naught and reduces the rulers of this world to nothing. No sooner are they planted, no sooner are they sown. No sooner do they take root in the ground than he blows on them and they wither, and a whirlwind sweeps them away like chaff. To whom will you compare me? Or who is my equal, says the set apart one. Lift your eyes and look to the heavens. Who created all this? He who brings out the starry host one by one and calls them each by name. Because of his great and awesome power and mighty strength, not one of them is missing. Why do you say, O Jacob, and complain, O Yashrael, my way is hidden from Yahuwah, my cause is disregarded by my Elohim? Do you not know? Have you not heard? Yahuwah is the everlasting Elohim, the creator of the ends of the earth. He will not grow tired or weary, and his understanding no one can fathom. He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Even youths grow tired and weary until young men stumble and fall. But those who hope in Yahuwah will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. It's a real emotional scripture there.
A lot of interesting expoundings I'm seeing here in the Targum of Isaiah. A lot of he has one singular dwelling place. I'll just put it that way. Chapter 38, verse 11, the Targum of Isaiah expounds by saying, I thought I shall not appear again before the terrible Elohim in the land of the house of his splendor or his esteem. So it's calling the temple the house of his esteem, which is the length of life, and I shall no more serve before him in the house of the set apart place, from where shall go forth joy unto all the inhabitants of the earth. Neither shall I dwell in Jerusalem, the set apart city, my habitation is cut down. So then another place it talks about heaven as his dwelling place is 38 verse 14. Him whose splendor is in the highest heavens. And let's see here. Let's go. I don't think I had anything for 39 or 40. 37. For I will defend this city to save it for the sake of my word and for the sake of David, my servant. And then it talks about the angel of Yahuwah in the next verse. 38 verse 4 talks about the words of prophecy came before Yahuwah to Isaiah. That could be possibly alluding to Yahusha. Yahusha is the spirit of prophecy. See here. 38 verse 1 tells us that Isaiah is the biological son of Amos. I find that interesting. Okay, so another prophet was actually his dad. verse 32, chapter 37, for the remnant of the righteous shall go forth from Jerusalem, and the escaped of them shall establish the law from Mount Zion. By the word of Yahuwah of armies shall this be done. So Yahusha himself is going to be gathering the escaped of Mount Zion. Most likely the context would be he's gathering them that escaped from their captivity to the land of Israel, and he is going to have them establish the Torah. Obviously, this is a millennial context. So, obviously, in Isaiah 37, 32 of the Targum of Isaiah. Let's see here. And it's very possibly the regathering could happen just before the millennium, but either way, at that point, you already have people escaped from the lands that they were dispersed at that point.
Sorry if I screwed up a few words, man.
Oh, it's okay.
Woo! Getting blurry all of a sudden.
The word of Yahuwah is being mentioned a lot here in these chapters in the Targum of Isaiah. 37, verse 29, because you are enraged against my word. Let's see here. I found it interesting here. There's a little foreshadowing to the millennial here in verse 22, 37. This is the word which Yahuwah has spoken concerning him. The kingdom of the congregation of Zion despises you. I find it interesting instead of the literal transliteration of, what is it, Mom? The daughter of Zion?
Yes.
So this says congregation. I find that interesting.
It's just...
Or no, not just congregation. It says the kingdom of the congregation. So it gives a more, futuristic type of feel to it. let's see again. Oh, another thing I find interesting. This is like a whole nother topic for a whole nother study, but I find this interesting. Verse 16 of the same chapter agrees with the Septuagint, where the Septuagint versus the Masoretic many times will say Yahuwah who dwells above the cherubim. The Masoretic always says between the cherubim. The Septuagint will actually say he sits above the cherubim, which the Targum of Isaiah 37:16 says, Yahuwah Elohim of armies, the Elohim of Yasharel, whose splendor dwells above the cherubim. So it agrees with the Septuagint in other places. You are Yahuwah, there is none besides you in all the kingdoms of the earth. You have made the heavens and the earth. Nothing else for 37. 36 verse 15. Neither let Hezekiah make you trust in the word of Yahuwah. Find that interesting. Yahusha's mentioned again there. He's also mentioned in verse 10 of the same chapter. And am I now come up without the word of Yahuwah against this land to destroy it? Verse 7 of 36, but if you say to me, we trust in the word of Yahuwah our Elohim, so it's calling the word of Yahuwah their Elohim, okay? 36 verse 1, now it came to pass in the 14th year of King Hezekiah that Sennacherib king of Assyria came up against all the fenced cities of the house of Yehudah. So we know for a fact, once we get to 36, Sennacherib is the king of Assyria that is talking about through the rest of our reading. Go ahead, brother Joshua. I'm not trying to make you wait any longer. Go ahead.
No, bro. I can wait until you're finished with your note.
Okay.
Go ahead, man.
All right. Let's see. 35. What really stood out to me in 35? There's actually a lot in 35 just because a lot of it has to do with future prophecy. I found it interesting in verse 4. It says, say ye to the fearful of heart that you may keep the law, that they may keep the law, be ye strong, and fear ye not. Reminds me of the book of Joshua there. Behold, your Elohim shall be revealed. So I find that interesting because no one has ever seen the Father, right? So it says he will be revealed to take judgment, to take vengeance of right ruling. It's even calling him Yahuwah of retributions. Yahuwah shall be revealed. He shall save you. So let's see here. Carmel, Sharon. There's nothing much different in that verse. Verse 5. Then the eyes of Yasharel shall be opened, which were blind to the law. Interesting. And their ears, which were as of the deaf, shall hear and receive the words of the prophets. Now that's interesting because that kind of connects with the Pharisees and all that, and how they were blind to the scriptures and all that. Even Yahusha mentions that. He says, you do error not knowing the scriptures. Okay. 34 has a lot about Edom, a lot of self-explanatory stuff in 34. What I did want to touch on is there's a lot of so-called mythical creatures in chapter 34, especially when you look at the Septuagint. I just want to see if I can show you guys on the screen here. When you go to the Septuagint version of 34 verses 11 to 14, you're going to find something very interesting. Let's see here. Let me go to my Facebook I need to go to my main page here. Come on, Facebook. Hurry up, man. You're killing me here. I think what it is, I got too many pages open. Come on. Way too many pages open. That's part of the problem. Okay. All right. So let's go to my photos. I made this post like about a year or so ago. Just wanted to show you guys some of the weird creatures that you'll see here sometimes in the scriptures that we've been conditioned by society to think they're fake. But in the scriptures, and the book of Enoch, which in my opinion, I consider it part of the scriptures, but to each his own. At the minimum, this extra biblical book of Enoch agrees with the Septuagint that there's some interesting creatures that are mentioned that are not exactly we're taught to believe are real in school and in modern science. So I just want to kind of go through some of these verses here and see here. I got a couple of these written down here on this post here. So Isaiah 34:13, Apostolic Bible Polyglot, which is a modern Greek Orthodox Bible that uses the Septuagint Old Testament, says in Isaiah 34:13, and shall cities and thorny woods grow in their cities, and also in her fortresses. They will be properties of sirens, in a courtyard of ostriches. Okay, so that's Isaiah 34:13-14. This is what a siren, according to Greek mythology, that's what a siren would have looked like. You also have the other image of a siren in earlier depictions in Greek mythology as a woman with bird-like wings. Okay, that's the other imagery that you'll see in scripture a lot. So Isaiah 13:21-22 also mentions what Isaiah 34 mentions here. It says, and wild beasts shall rest there, and they shall fill up houses with a sound, and sirens shall rest there, and demons will dance there, and satyrs, like half man, half goat, satyrs shall dwell there, and shall build a nest. And hedgehogs shall build a nest in their houses. So, me and brother Joshua were talking about this off the record. He asked me a good question, like, what the heck is a normal creature like a hedgehog doing with these other demonic hybrid-like creatures or monstrous-like creatures? And the only answer I could think of is they're unclean beasts. They're unclean animals. A lot of the times you'll see in barren lands, unclean animals will sometimes be in the land of the wicked. For example, Revelations 18 talks about every unclean bird, right? Every demon and unclean bird. So just for a reference there. And FYI, even though we've done a study about this in the past, but I know more and more people are coming across this channel. So this is part of the historical importance of the book of Enoch. This tells you what a siren is. So you're seeing sirens being mentioned like 5 or 10 different instances in the Septuagint. What is a siren? According to Enoch, a siren was the women. They were originally mortal human women of the Watchers that the Watchers went into in Genesis 6:4. I'll just read you an excerpt here, this verse from Enoch here. First Enoch 19, verse 2. And the women also of the angels, meaning the women that commingled with the angels, who went astray shall become sirens. And I, Enoch, alone saw the vision and the ends of all things, and no man shall see as I have seen. Now, it's not saying that he got a special revelation. It's just saying he has seen prophecy in a different way that no one other has seen, like in a different perspective. Something also to note, too, on a different note, even though it's not really pertaining to our Torah portion today, if you look at Revelations, John is not given the whole vision, technically. If you look at the book of Revelations towards the end, isn't there a verse, Mom, in Revelations that says he tells John to seal the book? And he doesn't finish actually writing the book? I could have swore there's an actual verse.
Daniel.
No, it happens with John,
really?
too. It says John keeps asking about the rest of the vision. And I remember a brother passed away recently that that was talking about this, how John Here we go. Revelations 22, verse 10, like right at the end
Okay.
here. Then he told me, do not seal up the words of the prophecy of this scroll because the time is near.
Mhm.
So do not seal them up. So I wouldn't.
This is very similar to what it said.
Yeah, so I wonder if this means that he just didn't finish writing it down.
Mm.
So this is an interesting verse here. So again, I would encourage people to be open-minded that prophecy has not been finished yet. Number one, and number two, John. It seems like John was not given like the rest of the story here, because it's telling him to do not seal up the words of the prophecy of the scroll because the time is near. So I find that a little interesting if that's the case. If that's the right interpretation of this verse, then John wasn't given the whole story here. So I find that a little interesting. Anyway, that's on another note. That is kind of interesting.
Sounds a lot like the end of Daniel, I'll tell you.
Yeah, and my mom's referring to Daniel chapter 12, by the way, where Daniel's not even given the rest of his story either. So
the wicked will continue to be wicked. The righteous will continue to be righteous.
Yeah, seal up till the time of the end. It's kind of similar there. So Daniel's told in Daniel 12, seal up the book. Because he asks like what's going to happen. He actually asks for the rest of the story, and then the angel says, no, you seal up the book, you don't write anymore, pretty much is what the guy's hinting to him. So I just wanted to show that. Anyway, just to kind of explain what we've been taught as mythological creatures are not actually mythological creatures. A lot of these creatures are real, like mermaids, aka sirens. So a lot of these things we see Disney promoting as good. Yeah. So anyway, just thought I would share that. Okay. And I have some notes written down. Let me just see if there's anything else. I think chapter 34 is pretty much self-explanatory. I didn't really see much from 34. And I think we can move on. I don't think I'm going to let Brother Joshua take over here. Go ahead, Brother Joshua.
Whoa, man! I found some pretty interesting stuff in the Wycliffe Bible compared to the modern Masoretic. It seems to side a lot more with the Septuagint. So first in Isaiah 34:14. So even I don't even see this in the LX or the AB, the Apostles' Bible, or the Lexham Septuagint, but in the Wycliffe it says, and fiends and wonderful beasts like men. Hold on. And fiends and wonderful beasts like men in the higher part, and like donkeys in the lower part, and hairy all over shall meet, and one shall cry to the other. The Lamia shall lie down there and shall find rest there for herself. I looked up what a Lamia is, and it kind of was like a Medusa, but without the snake hairs. It was a snake in the lower body part, and a woman, a female woman, kind of like a siren, but instead of a fish for the lower body part, it was a snake, a serpent. So it says the Lamia shall lie down there. And that's in the Wycliffe. Then also in the Wycliffe for Isaiah 35:10. I'm sorry, Isaiah 35:1. Let me get back to it. Rather than, and this is only, I only see this in the Wycliffe. I don't see it in the King James, or in the Septuagint. But it kind of just expounds a little bit on it, on who they're referring to, rather than just saying the wilderness and the solitary place shall be glad for them, and the desert shall rejoice. It says the forsaken Yehuda and the place without a way shall be glad, and the wilderness shall make full out of joy, or shall make full out joy. So specifically points to Yehuda being who it's referring to, or those that were forsaken. Then it kind of expounds on that when you get to verse 10. And rather than just saying those ransomed or those redeemed, it says those that have those again bought or bought again. So to me, just that makes a little bit more sense than just using the word redeemed, the again bought, kind of pointing to the renewed covenant. In the Masoretic versus the Septuagint, in Isaiah 36 verse 7, let's see. The Septuagint reads, "But if you say to me, we trust in Yahuwah our Elohim, is it not he whose high places and whose altars Hezekiah has taken away, and said to Yehuda and to..." Okay, I'm sorry. Somehow it got onto the restored name King James. Let me switch back to the Septuagint. The Masoretic seems to have an added part in there. It's missing in the Septuagint. I think this is in the Septuagint in another place, because I do remember reading it. But I think maybe they just kind of added it, this extra info into the Masoretic. I'm not sure it's supposed to be there, but the Masoretic adds, says that if you answer to me, we trust in Yahuwah our Elohim, whether it is not he whose high places and altars Hezekiah did away with and said to Yehuda and to Yerushalayim. So it has that added part in that Hezekiah did away with the high places and the altars. But in the Septuagint, it just says, "But if you say we trust in Yahuwah our Elohim," 37 verse 3, I see a similar concept to the woman in travail in Revelations. That seems to be, I've seen this in a couple different places. It seems to be a common phrase used. It says, "Today is a day of affliction and reproach and rebuke and anger, for the pangs have come upon the travailing woman, but she has not the strength to bring forth." So I just don't really have much to expound on that, but I just keep seeing that phrase being used, the woman in travail and the birth pangs. Something to take note of in the future. 37:12 in the Masoretic, it mentions something that is not in the Septuagint. I'd like to figure out where that land is and why they're referring to it as that. But the Septuagint simply says, "Have the mighty ones of the nations which my fathers destroyed delivered them, be it Gozan, Haran, or Rezeph, which are in the land of Telassar." Now the Masoretic says Gozan, Haran, and Rezeph, and the sons of Eden that were in Telassar. So it adds in the sons of Eden, which is not in the Septuagint.
Yeah, I have no idea what that could be referring to. The sons of Eden. The only thing I can be thinking of is that Eden was a land outside of the Garden of Eden. Like the Garden of Eden was part of Eden, if I remember correctly, geographically. So maybe it's talking about descendants of that land were destroyed. But I wonder why the Masoretes would have to add that in there. I wonder
Right.
what the point of that is, unless it's something like historically important to them. That also I wanted to mention another version of the Septuagint that talks about instead of satyrs, they talk about a similar creature in verses 11 to 14 of Isaiah 34. Is the Septuagint that me and Joshua have physically is the Lexham one. If you look at 11 to 14 here, especially verse 11, instead of satyr, it says, and I wonder if the Wycliffe is pulling from this other version of the Septuagint, because this says donkey centaur.
That's in the Britons.
That's in the Lexham.
Okay.
So the Lexham, by the way, for people that don't know, is a little. They use a different family of the Septuagint manuscripts because there's multiple Septuagint manuscripts out there today. They pull from what you can find this on Bible Hub, the Greek version of it, like the original Greek version of it is the Henry Sweet's Septuagint. So the Lexham was pulling from Sweets, not Britons. So that's why there's sometimes the words are different and stuff like that. So, but what's interesting is it's mentioning in verse 11 donkey centaurs. Obviously, a centaur is half man, half horse. Okay, that's what a centaur is in Greek mythology. And it mentions it multiple times. It says in verse 14, demons will meet donkey centaurs. One will cry out to the other. Their donkey centaurs will rest since they have found a rest for themselves. And then talks about the hedgehog making its nest. By the way, sirens are also mentioned in the Lexham. So the Lexham kind of sides with the Apostolic Bible Polyglot in certain ways like that. Okay, so sirens are also mentioned in verse 13. So a lot of weird creatures in end times. I would say this is like end times Babylon context, like Isaiah 13 talks about it too. So this is definitely judgment on Edom, but it's also kind of paralleling with Babylon and even spiritual Babylon, its judgment. And according to a commentator, I did want to go to a commentator before we moved on to the Chronicles portion. According to the commentator, this inheritance that it mentions at the end of the chapter seems to not be referring to like what we would think. It's referring to this deserted land is given to these monsters to inherit. It seems what the context is. And I'll just show you what I mean. According to the Geneva Bible, which was written 1599, it's a Protestant Bible similar to Wycliffe. Their commentator, this is what he has to say. Whoever wrote the Geneva Bible says he has given beasts and souls Idumea for an inheritance. So it seems like the land of Idumea is given to these weird creatures as an inheritance, like this destroyed land of Edom. For whatever reason, he's Yahuwah is allowing them to have that as an inheritance, because I'm kind of more on that interpretation rather than it's talking about Israel inheriting it, because pretty much the whole context of the chapter is Edom's being destroyed, blood is covered on the land, and it's pretty much talking about destruction rather than Israel being given a nice beautiful promised land. So it would make more sense to me that in this context that the Geneva Bible translator might be onto something here. So, and it's talking about demonic creatures pretty much inhabiting the land, even in the prior verses before 16 and 17. So that's kind of where I'm at with that interpretation of 16 to 17. And so, anyway, so I just wanted to put my 2 cents in for that. I know that's a really tricky one in this chapter because he doesn't mention his people at all in this chapter. So for me to come to the conclusion that he's talking about giving an inheritance to his people, I would really have to just be insinuating, because Israel's not even mentioned in this whole chapter, as far as I know. This is all about wrath on the nations, wrath on the Gentiles. So anyway, but let me see here. Okay, so what we have next is First Chronicles 12 to 17. I think I'm just going to do a new recording for us just so we have enough time, and we're not kind of rushing things. And I don't like to make these videos a little too long, because then people kind of get bored when a study is like going on like 2 hours long. So All right, so I'm gonna just chop these studies up here. Let's see here. So we're gonna stop the recording here. We're gonna start a brand new one right away for First Chronicles 12 to 17. We'll have a new reader. So please stay tuned, everyone. We'll be back very shortly. Shalom.